Good evening. Welcome back to Good Enough Garage. On today's Wednesday EV Wonders episode, the Zombie and Throttle pedals. So in front of me, we have the OG, the very first and the original BMW E something something throttle pedal. Taking center stage, we will start with that one and then we will talk about the design of these throttle pedals, their physical appearance, and how to connect them to our zombie. So we will be learning about 4 new pins. We have covered so many pins already, and today we will add 4 more, still on the same connector that we have been adding all the others. And the goal is to go over how we calibrate a throttle and why do we need to calibrate a throttle. These throttle pedals here are something called Hall effect, and we'll talk about those as compared to some that are called potentiometers or POTS for short. I know nothing about nothing. I think potentiometers, in my mind, are volume knobs, and I think they actually have some sort of a physical contact there, whereas Hall effect is a fancy way of saying magnet or magnetic, and I don't think it's really metal on metal, so they are probably more reliable, and I think they're probably more durable and last longer. It's sort of like brushes versus no brushes, brushless motors, right? Similar concept. So when it comes to these guys, I want to share some things that I've discovered and I continue to discover. First of all, let's talk about mountability. Of course, we're going to start with the BMW pedal. This one here is floor mounted, and I live in California, and yes, we have Mercedes and BMWs, of course we do. But mounting this on the floor came to me as a bit of a surprise. In the truck, I made it live on the floor, but it wasn't one of my proudest moments. I had to use some precision tools to make that happen, and I decided to pull this out. Workability wise, this is a wonderful pedal. I started out with this one. I'm gonna say it's maybe an E46. This pedal is floor mounted. It's what I call a pedestal mount. And some of you guys are converting what I would call modern cars. And anything maybe like in the last 15 years, maybe 2010 and newer, I'm gonna say may already have a what is called a drive-by-wire throttle. So some of us old geezers who still think of points and distributors and carburetors, our throttles we never referred to them as drive-by cable, but when these drive-by-wire guys came out, we kind of back named the old ones drive-by cable. Cable meaning like a bicycle brake cable or a bicycle, gear changing actual cable, right? We've also seen old like linkages where it's rods on throttles. I think I may have even seen one that was a chain operated throttle, but I think that was kind of done for shock value. Anyway, these are called drive-by-wire. I think if you go to the junkyards, you're going to be hard pressed to find something older. Most of them will be that. So as far back to mounting, floor mounted. Okay, we got this guy that's floor mounted. That's going to be something like a BMW, Mercedes, and I don't know what else I peeked at, but you get the idea. Probably German stuff, probably very common in Europe. Well, then we get to the States, and either our domestics, our Ford and Chevys, or Japanese here, these are going to be mounted on the firewall, and they're going to be mounted like so, okay? A lot of these here are mounted like so rather than on the floor. So if we kind of compare these two, see what I'm talking about? And so that's one thing. And I know I went over this a bit in the prior video. This is just a recap, and this is going to be more on the calibrating. But so the way they mount is important. So we have pedestal mount or floor mount. Then we have all these other ones are firewall. And then I found this one here that's a bit of a unicorn. I think some gentleman commented on the forum that he uses this, and it could really work depending on your application, because this one doesn't mount to a firewall like this. It will actually mount to a bracket. Okay, so I'm gonna show it maybe facing you. So it mounts, screws go this way rather than this way, right? So I pulled this one on purpose when I saw that, because I wanted to demonstrate the different mountabilities. And the last thing that finally struck me, so that I always like to get as many parts out of a donor vehicle as possible. So the 84 Rabbit, that's next to me here, is getting a Prius drivetrain or power plant, motor transaxle, if you will. So I thought, oh, let's get as much junk out of that Prius. So I got a pedal out of a Prius, and that's how I like to do things, get as much stuff out of that car. I also got a water pump out of it and so on. But what I'm finding is that there's a Honda Fit pedal that is stealing the show. And this sucker is working really well in the Rabbit. That's what's going to go in the Rabbit. Even though I tried the Prius, I gave it my best effort. And then this guy also is going to go in the truck. So Dusty and the Bunny are going to have to duke it out and probably do a pay-per-view, gloves off brawl. Who gets this pedal, right? And why is that? Well, I want to point something out to you guys. A lot of these pedals are plastic. So the Beamer one is all plastic. The Beamer one I actually want to show you before I forget, if I can get this off. It comes with a separate bracket, and you guys in Europe are probably like, well, duh, of course, they all do. Well, this was, I bought the pedal, I didn't have the bracket, and I'm like, how the hell do you mount this thing? So then you go out and get this bracket. This one is already modified, and my solar panel inverter just kicked in, so I'm going to start shouting. All plastic pedal, the Prius is plastic. I may have written down what some of these came out of. 2007 Jeep. What was that Jeep? Compass? All plastic. So plastic, 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 plastic. Now, I am not bashing those pedals. I'm not. What I'm trying to tell you is that this one here, which I think this is like out of a Chevy Avalanche or Envoy, this is metal, and the Honda Fit is metal. And what's cool about that is that metal we can cut and re-weld, or we can heat up and bend. Now, we probably have to be careful and maybe remove all the plastic here before heating it and bending it, or welding it and heating it. I played that game before where I caught myself welding something and there was electronics in it. I forget what it was now, and even if I remembered, I wouldn't admit it. So be careful when you cut, heat, and weld, because this has electric components in it, right? But this part's metal. So that is metal is a nice thing, especially for classic cars. Classic cars may need some fandangling to accommodate the drive-by-wire pedals. Okay, so let's talk about how I get these pedals. In the States, there is a yard called Pick and Pull where we pay like $2-3 to get in, admission fee, and then we can yank out these pedals. For those of you watching this in the States, I'm not sure if you have Pick and Pull in every state, but you might have equivalent of them. And so about 3-4 times a year, maybe like 6 times a year, they have huge 50% off sales. They usually follow big holidays like President's Day, 4th of July, Memorial Day. And I would always miss those when my family was going camping a lot. We were such big campers, and I was always out of town in the forest somewhere, drinking beers and missing out yet another 50% off sale. So now I'm making up for it by buying all these pedals, right? But they have 50% off. So I got one pedal for like $5, and I got one actually for free. And I felt bad, but I think because I bought so much junk, they just gave me a pedal. but they are pretty inexpensive. And then these pedals lead us to, again, playing with the Zombie without owning an inverter, without owning a motor, without owning a car you're going to put that into. You're just going to need your laptop. Heck, you can tune this thing with your phone, you young whippersnappers. But yeah, so this is kind of the next level we can go with these pedals and talk to the Zombie. Just pedals, Zombie, laptop, and either power supply or some way to power this thing up. You could use a 9-volt battery if you had to. I always buy these with a pigtail. Okay, pigtail is just about a couple inches of wire as far as you can reach underneath there under the dash. Sometimes you can look for a connector or a plug. I've cut some before, and then later I found they were plugged in. There was a plug like a couple inches further tucked under the dash. But don't feel bad. Just cut those wires as far up there as you can get. And all of these have pigtails. The Honda Fit one that's missing one, I think that's because it's on the harness. It's hardwired to the harness. But I might cut it just when we get into tuning it. These pedals are Hall effect. Dual channel, that's what's recommended for the Zombie, although if you had to, it would support a single channel. Everything I'm going to show you here, Damien shows us in his videos, so watch his videos first. So each one of these will have 6 wires, okay? Each one of these, if you got a pigtail, will have 6 wires, or it will at least have 6 pins inside there. And you can kind of split these into 2, okay? Let's just talk about some of the basics of this. So there's going to be three wires for channel 1, and there's going to be 3 wires for channel 2, okay? And what we have here for channel 1 is we're going to have, and I'm just going to randomly point out wires, so don't pick up on the colors because these are probably wrong. I'm just guessing. But there's going to be a ground wire, a 5-volt wire, and a channel or a signal wire. And then again, there's going to be a second ground wire, a second 5-volt wire, and a signal, okay? When it comes to understanding what each wire does, then we'll refer to something called pinout diagrams. And for those, we can just hit Google and start Googling, just blindly off the street, as I call it. So 2010 Honda Fit throttle pedal pinout diagram, and hope we get lucky. Sometimes there are all kinds of maniacs reporting that, but that is kind of our first pass. One of the points I want to make in this video is that I just don't want to give you information. I want to tell you where I at least get it. So again, openinverter.org, and there's a forum on there, and on the top of the page you'll see a link to their wiki. And wiki is just, you've all heard of Wikipedia, so this wiki is specifically for EV stuff. And in there, it's organized in a couple of different ways, but what I like about it is that if you know nothing about anything, but you're just like, I have a BMW part, then it's organized by manufacturer. So I think you can go to OEM, and then you can go BMW, and then you click on it, and then you can look and go, oh, there is a throttle listed. All right, look, let's look at it. And sure enough, they'll have a pinout for this pedal. If you haven't bought a pedal yet, what you could do is kind of work backwards, all right? What you can do is you can go to openinverter.org, click on their wiki, click on OEM parts, and look at manufacturers and be like, oh, there's a Tesla. Well, that's a popular model or manufacturer. Click on it. When you click on Tesla, as of today, I don't think there is a pinout diagram for a Tesla on our wiki page or on the wiki page, ours as far as community. So it would be nice if somebody added it. I did find a Tesla pinout because they're so popular. I think it's someone posted that on the forum, but it's not on the wiki page. However, the BMW on the wiki page pedal does have a pinout diagram, and the Prius also has a which one's the Prius? This one's the Prius. The Prius also has it. So you can go on there and look by, manufacturer. And like, let's say you're a VW buff. So go to like VW, OEM, then Volkswagens, then look and be like, oh, do they have a VW throttle pedal on here? And if they do, then see what year of car it comes off of or where the part number is. And then you can hit eBay and get one, or at least look to see what it looks like. And see, like, work backwards rather than going to a junkyard and buying a pedal and then hoping to find a pinout. See what pinouts are available, then go to the junkyard and look for that throttle pedal, if that makes any sense. So all of these will have 6 wires, and I might do a second video about the Damien McGuire method, which teaches us how to tell what wire is what, if we cannot find a pinout diagram. So Damien was kind enough to give us instructions on how to do that. That's a little bit advanced, and hopefully we can take care of quite a bit of these pedals with finding the pinout diagrams. But we have Google. Then of course we can go directly to the Open Inverter Wiki. And then another way to find these, if you don't mind paying for a subscription, is alldata.com. And I've used that. You can just sign up for a month, and they have decent, not the greatest wiring diagrams, but something like a pinout for a throttle they'll have for whatever car. So you can go over there, look up a vehicle, see if they have diagrams for that vehicle, and then click on subscribe for a month and pay them something like 19 bucks a month, and maybe print screenshot or something of the pinout. Of course, if you do that, then maybe you can share with us on the Open Inverter Wiki. Okay, so we have pigtails with 6 wires. All of these will have 6 wires. All of these will be dual channel, and they are kind of grouped into channel 1 and channel 2. And that's where I'm headed next, is that we will be going 6 wires into 4 pins. And the way that works is that we simply will just take ground of channel 1 and ground of channel 2, and we'll combine it and into 1 wire and go to 1 pin. Then we'll take 5 volts from channel 1, 5 volts from channel 2, combine it, and that will go to the pin on the VCU. Then that will take care of 2 pins, and then leaving us with 2 more wires and 2 more pins. And then channel 1 gets its own pin, and channel 2 gets its own pin. It is important to point out that we've learned that we're dealing with electronic components, and as the Greg says, electronic components need power, so they get DC power, positive and negative. Sometimes on the car it's 12 volts and a ground. I believe these run on 5 volts and a ground, obviously, but they connect directly to the VCU for their ground and for their power. So we don't run these to the car battery. We run them to the VCU. I think the ground going to the VCU just makes it more stable if it's grounded to the VCU rather than like a chassis. And I think we pull the power from the VCU is because this can draw, I think, like 19 or higher volts, and then step it down to 5 volts for the pin for the throttle. It also steps it down to like 3 volts for this little blue Wi-Fi card. So this guy does some power management for us. So it's important to note that all the wires today will be physically wired to the VCU and not run to a fuse or run to a car battery, things like that. So I forget if we fuse this in between the pin and the throttle. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I honestly forgot how I did it on the truck. I should remember this. Well, not prepared. I told you, put in the comments, do we need a fuse between the zombie pin and the the power on the two power wires on the two 5 volters, okay? And we'll try to do it the right way. Okay, well, nothing to it but to do it. Let's start off with the BMW pedal, and I'll bring out a laptop and I'll show you where I'm going to get the information for it, and we'll go ahead and crimp some of these wires and connect them to the VCU. So let's go for it. Okay guys, I figure I'll bring you in here so that we can see what we're doing rather than you looking at my mug from across the room. So whenever working with wire harness, I like to get a sharp razor blade, and yes, I have a nice box cutting knife. Can I find it at this moment? Of course not, because I'm making a video, but I'm gonna start out by getting a fresh razor blade. And this pedal was already in my truck, but I put electrical tape back on it, and this is the cloth one. And normally I like to see if I can just undo it. Of course not this one. So then it's okay to gently cut it kind of with the grain, and then it's going to separate. And I'm not going to be telling you guys what you already know. I just don't want to do anything off camera and take anything for granted. So I like to completely get everything loose, right? I don't want to have any tape on here, so there's absolutely no surprises. All right, and is this the funky one? One of them was really weird. I forget which pedal, but see if I can unplug it. Jeez, okay. Whew. So I got that off, and we're gonna jump to a laptop. I've said it before that you want to dedicate a laptop to the Zombie, but because I'm making these videos, I hope you understand that I will take a laptop and simply put on a home network, and just so we can jump out to the interwebs, right? I think that's gonna make sense. So here we go, and we have 6 wires coming out of this pigtail, and we have no idea what the heck they are. If I decide to do the Damien McGuire method for identifying these, then we would talk about how we can sort of get a head start on these on some models, not all. What you'll find on the BMWs, and this is what Damien has told us, is that you may have, let's say, a brown wire and a brown wire with a green stripe. So just make a mental note that those may be doing the same thing, but one for one channel and the other one for the second channel. So I will tell you that most likely on the BMWs, as Damien points out, the browns are ground. So the solid brown could be ground for channel 1, and the brown with a green stripe could be ground for channel 2. I don't know exactly, but the browns are most likely doing some groundage. Then we have a yellow, and we have a yellow with a green stripe. So this kind of repeats itself. The yellow could be 5 volts, and the yellow for channel 1, and the yellow with the green stripe could be 5 volts for channel 2. Maybe it's the signal for channel 1 and signal for channel 2. I don't know, but the browns go together possibly, and the yellows go together possibly. Then we have white, and we have a white one with a green stripe. Again, the white could be the signal for channel 1, and the white and green could be the signal for channel 2. Something to that effect. I think VW does something similar with colors. And I think if we were to look at the Prius one, or maybe one of the other ones, we'll find out that it's just a free-for-all. The wires just don't make sense. Okay, so I am going to start off by going to OpenInverter. I know we have the option of just Googling, BMW E46, I think that's what this pedal is out of. Throttle pedal wiring pinout. But we're going to just go to openinverter.org and take advantage of the efforts of those that came before us. So the first choice on here when we Google openinverter.org is actually the wiki. So that's perfect. That's what we want. I'm going to jump on there. And I remember when I first went to this page and it was like drinking out of a garden hose. And so there's a lot of information, right? But if we look on here, there's all these categories, and under getting started, there's something called OEM parts, and that caught my eye. And so I thought, oh, this is wonderful. Let's jump in there. So we went to OEM parts, and it says a variety of OEM parts members of the community have reverse engineered for custom use cases. Perfect. First one on the list, BMW. Perfect. I wonder if anybody has reverse engineered the throttle pedal. Well, look at that. First one on the list, BMW electronic throttle pedal. That's what I was talking about. Click on that. And then it tells us that there's going to be a couple flavors of it. So version 1, version 2, version 3. And if we look down here, accelerator pedal version 1, and there is a pinout, right? And there's a brown and green, a brown, a yellow and green, yellow, a white, and a white and green. So that's exactly what we're looking for, guys. I am very happy to see that. Let's see if the brown, if there's a difference for version 2. So I think what happens in version 2 is they just do brown and blue rather than brown and green. Our cable here has brown and green, and then yellow and green. And then there's also, I think, version 3. But I think we're following the first category, the version 1. And sometimes, you look up your part number, and they have a really good job here of listing our part numbers on here. I'll put the part number of this pedal in the description if you want to score one. But sometimes it's just kind of like a little bit of art and a little bit of a science. So if your part number isn't on here, then, for example, I think this part number on this guy is what? Where is it written at? 3542. So the number on here is 3542, and then space. So 3542. And you notice as I start typing, I do 35 and it says 1 out of 61 found, and I do 42 and it just goes to 0. So you can cheat and look in the middle of the page and see that the way these guys wrote the part numbers is with some spaces. So just be aware of that. And so if we do 35 space 42, now it's still finding stuff. It's 1 out of 33 found. Okay. So the point is sometimes the formats of the way the part numbers are written doesn't jive. That goes also for eBay. That goes also for Google. Sometimes there's spaces. Sometimes there's dashes. Sometimes it's just a string of numbers. So we'll do a space 67 and then 62. And so when I did 67, 62, it disappeared. If I go to 676, we're seeing something in there. Now let's see where that puts me. Does that put me in the... That kind of puts me in version 2, but my colors, unless I'm colorblind, match version 1. I swear they're green. Anyway, so this is the point of how to look up a part number on these pages with some spaces. Again, I know you guys know this. And then, but I'm trying to point out that sometimes it's not exact precision. Like I know my colors have green in them, so enough beating that dead horse to death. So we're gonna go with that. So brown is ground, and brown and green is ground as well. So let's go ahead and get our dandy handy strippers here. These are J&T products. They're calling wire cutters. And again, not the greatest, but sure a whole lot more better than the ones that are that you pull on. So I'm going to go about 1/2 inch. And just twist them a little bit for funsies. And I'm excited to show you guys this next thing, okay? I think my friend Artur Kustuc, who did a amazing Jaguar EV conversion, he turned me on to these doodads. I'm gonna have to look up what these called. They're like speed connectors, whatever connectors. Now, is it gonna bug the hell out of me that I'm using the orange style, which is supposed to be high voltage for grounds? Yes. Will I try to survive? Yes. So let me show you how this works. This is maybe the first time I'm using these. I've been dying to use these, man. I don't even know what I'm doing. So we're gonna plug one in the butt here. So that's just how they work. So this long wire that I just added, this is going to go to the VCU. Hopefully you can see it. But then it in turn will connect to these. And I don't own any 1-into-2. I just grabbed the 1-into-4s. I seemed like a good idea at the time. Man, I thought these like pop up and stay up. There we go. Okay, and then we just put it in here and snip it down. Pull up the next one. So yeah, I'm such a color junkie that I'm going to try to find some that are black for grounds and then maybe some red ones for positive. But how cool is that, man? So we just did 1/3 of our work. Okay, we just took care of the grounds. Okay, so next on the list, they're talking about yellow, green, and then yellow. And I'm not even, at this point, I'm not even looking at pins. I'm just grabbing the colors. So yellow, this one, and yellow, green. So this thing loves to not spit out the whatever it's called, conduit of the wire or the shielding. So it gets stuck in those in these jaws, and that's why when I look like a full stripping, see how that one is stuck? Can you guys see that? There's a piece. I don't know. They get stuck and then it won't strip another wire. Okay, so then we get another lead that's going to go to the VCU. And we stick this one in its butt. Oh, there it is. So you pop it all the way up. Strip about half of it. This is really cool. So yeah, I know a lot of you probably already use these, but for those of you who just seeing them for the first time, and I wonder if I bought these on Amazon, but nice quality, man. This is nice and sturdy. There's holes here to secure them to whatever. If you were going to, I don't know if you run them in production like this, but they can make a really nice setup for a test workbench. Okay, so look at that, guys. 2/3 settled. The brown here is our ground, and the yellow here is our 5-volt supply. So that leaves us with white, which is signal sensor 1, and yellow, which is, white and green, I'm sorry, which is our signal sensor 2. Sorry, had a little meltdown there. Okay, so Well, unfortunately, I don't know if I should use another doodad like that just for the singles. I think I'm going to. I'm gonna going to get two more of these just to show off. So I'll be right back. All right, gentlemen, I brought two more of these, and I know these are just going to be one-to-one connections, but I don't care. I'm having fun using those, and this way I don't have to twist wires together, and more importantly, put some sort of electrical tape on them, because you don't want them touching or anything like that. So let's keep going here. So our output goes in the butt of one of these, and that's our white one, and we actually have a white wire. And it doesn't matter, obviously, which one we're going to put in here, but, you know, because I'm anal, I'm going to put it right in the middle. Ah, man, these are nice. I am very happy with these. As I say all this, watch, they don't make good connections. No, they will. Okay, so we got a white one, which is signal sensor 1. And then, look, we have a white and green. And I can't believe this. I found white and green in my OEM wire harness extras. That's unheard of that I actually found exactly what I wanted. I am so stoked. For once, I'll have the colors matching. Very happy with that. So we're going to do that one. And just like that, using the pinout, whoever put that on the wiki, thank you so much. This is exactly what it's about. Helping each other out. And you'll find guys love to talk about this stuff, right? This is their hobby. This is their passion. Maybe this is their a profession, career, what have you. All right, so we got the brown, we got the white and green, and the yellow. Now, I want to show you that most of these wires came out of a pre-manufactured wiring harness that I bought on AliExpress, and I'll flash a picture of that. But this white and green one, I pulled out of my junk drawer, and I'm telling you that because that AliExpress wiring harness did not have green in them. So I bought these pins, and I'm going to actually crimp one on here. These are not bad to crimp on at all. Damien picked a really good header. These are so freaking easy to crimp on there. And so these, instead of 1/2 inch, you're going to pull off just, oh man, again, it bit me. Just about 1/8 of an inch or so, maybe. What's after 1/8 of an inch? And like, that's like 3 millimeters. And I have two different doodads. One thing I discovered recently is like their thickness actually matters. Not on these, but I was crimping something else. What was it? Oh yeah, those inline fuse buttons. And I noticed that on some of them it made a difference which thickness crimper I used. Not something I would have thought of as being a concern. So let me see here. Again, this is not a how to crimp. I'm just trying to cover all my bases as I do this. So we're gonna crimp some on camera, sorta-ish. And I'm too lazy to just go grab my double crimper, so I'm gonna do it with these. It just means I have to do it twice. Once for the sort of naked part and once for the shielded. Okay, I think think that's decent. I don't know if you guys can see it, but you know, it is what it is. And oh, I almost forgot. We are gonna have to put some heat shrink on these because they are going on directly on the pins. I'm glad you guys reminded me of that. So while I go get some heat shrink, you guys stare at the zombie pinout. So okay, so we grab that. So okay, so now what, right? Well, I jump over here to the search and I'm gonna type ZombieVerter VCU, hit enter, and it pulls up a page that matches the title, ZombieVerter VCU. Cool, all right. Well, we're here to see the pinout. This is where I get those pinouts I'm blowing your minds with. I'm just stealing other people's work and dumbifying it. So under pinout, look at that. There was a pinout for the throttle pedal, and of course there's a pinout for the zombie. So we click on this dude. I'm gonna click on this image again just to make it more bigger. And what we can see here, we kind of started, it's kind of awkward, but the best way to go about this, so you kind of follow my logic, is starting on the bottom here and going from right to left. So you'll recognize pin 56 here is permanent 12 volts and then a ground. So the pins are numbered up here. And then follow this arrow, and this is our right connector if we're staring at the connectors. And so I always call them A and B. So this would be like the B connector in the old days, and that's where 99.972% of our cabling will happen on. So for today, we're going to need permanent power on pin 56, so 12 volts from our bench power supply, a ground to our bench power supply on pin 55. We don't have to worry about no forward, no reverse, no start on pin 52. We haven't covered anything about this high voltage request. And then general purpose 12 volts, we haven't even talked about it. Brake input, we haven't talked about it. Bam, 5 volts throttle. Well, so this is going to be where we put our yellow, and the yellow green are our 5 volts. So those combined will go here. And this is on pin 48, I believe. Then throttle 1 would be, I think it's our white. Throttle 2 will be white and green. And then here we go, throttle grounds would be the browns, right? And then the last two are CAN bus 2. So we haven't used CAN bus 2. If we go a little bit further, we use these here, CAN external low, CAN external high, which live right above our ground and are permanent. So these CAN we used up here for our safety box. So yeah, we're just filling up more pins on our B connector, if you will. And today we're doing throttle ground, throttle 5 volts, throttle signal 1, throttle signal or channel 2. So these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I was going to go get something, I believe. Oh yeah, heat shrink. Okay, so I'm back with some heat shrink tubing. This is from Harbor Freight. Not a fan of variety packs because I always will use up like one size. But what we're trying to do here is put heat shrink on our ends just because we are not running them inside of a proper connector. We are just, doing a freestyling these. So we want to make sure they don't touch each other. So just using a lighter. Twist the wire if you can and move the lighter back and forth. Don't hold it in the same spot and you'll be decent-ish. So that's 1, 3 more to go. Great time to post the Chuck Norris joke in the comments. In Chuck Norris's backyard, money actually grows on trees. Okay, so those are doodadded. Happy with that. We have our pinout. Let's connect them to the zombie. So here's our zombie. We're going topless. And we need to make sure we get these on the right pins. So on the bottom here, 1 through 28 and 29 through 56. We picked this one up on pin 43. So 43 and 44, the first two down here are empty, or we leave unplugged because those are for CAN external 2. And then we need throttle ground, which is our brown wire. So, oh man, I made a perfect mess here, but oh well. So 1, 2, bam, there somewhere. It's like a glove. Then the next one is white and green is throttle 2, so that's what we want. Which one is that? White and green. And then white is for throttle 1. And then we have our yellows for 5 volts. All right, and then we are back to our regular permanent power stuff wires. So the last one on the end is red, 12 volts, actually to the bench power supply. And the 55, the pin before it, is ground. So we're gonna shove that in there. And sorry if you guys can't exactly see what I'm doing here. We're more focused on the software today of calibrating than the pins. Of course, I'll post some pictures of close-ups. There are close-ups in the prior videos. All right, guys, so we have some more equipment here. So this is our bench power supply. I just want to make sure it is set to the right voltage, 13 volts. Just check it, then turn it off. So from here, we're going to the bench power supply. Let's plug in our throttle stuff. We're gonna plug our throttle in. Always buy always buy pigtails if you can. Oh, that fits perfectly. And okay, so just to make my life easier, I'm going to put this pedestal back on here. All right. Well, I don't know if that made any difference. Okay, maybe. Okay, so now let's fire up our zombie. There's going to be no lights on the throttle pedal. There obviously is no noise coming from it, anything like that. All right, so here we are on ZombieVerter web page. This is the menu system for the zombie. And we're going to click on parameters because when adding a throttle, there are some parameter settings that we need to set. Under parameters, what you'll notice is there's a general setup section and throttle gets its own subsection. So here we are looking under throttle and we have something called pot min, pot max, pot 2 min, pot 2 max, and we even have something called pot mode. So if we just look at pot mode, so pot stands for potentiometer. It's a holdover from the days where throttles were potentiometers and not Hall effect. So pot mode, I'm not sure if dual channel is the default because this is programmer speak. So the default setting here in the last column, if we review the column headings, we have the unit of measurement, minimum value, maximum value, and the default setting. Sometimes you'll notice that the default may say a 0 or a 1. and that is programmers speak for the indexes of the array. So array is a table, pronounced list. So programmers make a list, and this list has two things in it. And programmers number their list starting with 0. So if programmer's wife says, hey man, can you go to the grocery store and get me eggs, milk, and bread? He's going to write on his list 0 eggs, 1 milk, 2 bread. And his list will say 0, 1, 2, but he's getting 3 things. I assume these may be in the list or the array are alphabetical to where that dual channel is the first item on the list. So 0 is dual channel. And if we put this to single channel, then that's really 1. So just a little additional information. Okay, so we want to use a dual channel. We can use a single, but it's not recommended. So use a dual if you can. Now we're going to look under throttle. So Potman pronounced Hall effect throttle 1 minimum value. And then there is Potmax pronounced Hall effect throttle 1 maximum value. Then we go to Pot2min, Hall effect throttle 2 minimum value, and then Pot2max, Hall effect throttle 2 maximum value. And the format here I think is digits, so raw data maybe. So these are defaults, and at first when I heard of calibrating my throttle, I thought, oh Damien, why don't you just preset these for us and tell us which freaking throttle to buy and I'll buy it. But then I thought, no. When you are allowed to calibrate your throttle, sky's the limit. You can use whatever throttle you want and you'll get accurate settings and you can configure that throttle to work with the Zombie. It's absolutely brilliant. And I've proven that. This great throttle doesn't fit well in my type of vehicle, my truck, okay? Not sure if I tried this in the Rabbit, but I pulled this out of my truck after 1,500 miles of driving just fine, no technical difficulties, just kind of bit of leg fatigue because I'm a wuss. And so I want to get a better ergonomic throttle. Anyway, and for that reason, I can calibrate the one out of a Honda Fit or the one out of a Prius or whatever else I bought, right? So calibrating the throttle is wonderful. It's a wonderful idea. How do we do it? Well, parameters is what we put into the system, but what do we get out? Well, we get out some pot values in here as well. So if we go to spot values, we can see what the throttle is telling us. So if we go to pot and pot 2 tell us the throttle can be in 2 absolute positions, I would say. So with our foot off of it, this is minimum value of the throttle. This is off, right? We're doing minimum calibration part is easy because we don't have to do anything. We just plug it all in and just look at it, okay? So this tells us that our value for pot or Hall effect throttle 1, actually this is what it is now, is 435, and for channel 2 it's 221. And just to kind of put this in perspective, if we say auto refresh, okay, watch what happens when I press the throttle halfway. Those numbers change, right? You don't have to memorize them or anything like that, but they change. Now I'm going to press the throttle all the way down. See, the numbers just change. They went up. I'm going to release, and they will settle in their released or off values, which is basically throttle off, right? And I'm going to turn off auto refresh just for fun, refresh it once. Okay, so we have these values of minimum throttle because nothing's applied. So we're going to take pot, which is the first one first. It's 443. Okay, so 443 We're going to go to parameters. We're going to go under throttle. And the pot min says 443. But what we are instructed to do is kind of define a sweet spot for safety so that we will always be in the range. So for the minimum, we actually want to add 10. So 443 becomes 453. And I will show you a diagram. But basically, if this is our throttle and this is our throttle pressed, see that? That's perfect calibrated throttle. So our range we're setting a little bit lower. That's our minimum. This is how high the pedal will go, but we don't want that. We want to start tiny bit under it. Tiny bit under it. And then we press it down. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to subtract a bit. So I'm exaggerating, but it's not going to be completely floored. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to leave some of that magnificent 80 horsepower on the table, as they say, right? As the cool kids say. No, we're still going to use 100% of our throttle. It's all relative, except, a range of 1,000 digitals. Our range is going to be 1,000 minus 10, and then add another 10. So our range, instead of 1,000 digitals, is going to be 980 digitals. You guys know what I'm saying. Okay. Put in the value. Always press enter. Jump to spot values. Go down to pot. Pot 2 is 221 for pot 2. 221. 221. Go up here to throttle. Pot 2 min. 221 becomes 231. Enter. And then I'm just going to write the mins for funsies. So we did the min, so we're 50% there. Let's just go down to spot values, right? Okay, so now we're doing max. And max is a bit more, I would say, involved because we have to do something. So we're going to press the pedal down. I'm holding it with my thumb here. And we're going to press refresh. So pot now says 2410. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to go back to parameters. 2410, 2410, 2410. Pot max 2410, 2410. We have to here subtract. So 2400. Perfect. Enter. All right. Again, we started a little bit below all the way up. And now we're going to go and finish a little bit before it's fully pressed. Okay? If you were to do the whole range, that's not world ending, but I'm just doing what's recommended. Okay, so let's go back to spot values. 1211, and we're going to subtract a 10 after that. 1211, 1211, go to parameters. Pot 2 max. Pot 2 max. 1211 becomes 1201. Enter. Okay? Don't forget to write this. Go to commands. I'm going to jump to parameters because I know there's some message. I'm going to clear the message first. I'm going to go back to commands. I'm going to save parameter to flash. Jump to parameters, and it says CAN map stored. Happy, happy. I'm going to clear this for funsies. I'm going to jump down to spot values, and I'm going to go to my pot here, pot and pot 2. Again, on here, I would like to see this spot value section to where we have another column that says visible. Now here we can toggle all visible or non-visible. So we would say non-visible. Then we would scroll down to pot and pot 2, and we would check the box for visible, check the box for visible. And then when we did our auto refresh or whatever, all the other ones would go out away, and we would only be staring at pot and pot 2. Because I don't know how many there are items on their spot values, because these aren't numbered. Notice they're not numbered. But if you look at parameters, there's over 100 freaking parameters. That's a lot. If we go to parameters, I think there's a little bit more under throttle. Okay, so I think throttle dead is a percentage of like how much we can touch before it actually does something. So like maybe 10% before it kicks in. This video ran long, guys. I apologize. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.